Hi, I'm Melissa and I'm here to tell you a little bit more about how the Thermomix works. This video is for all the geeks, engineers, and nerds out there who want to know more about the science behind the Thermomix. If you're happy just to chalk it up to magic, then look through my other videos and see what you can find. If you want to know a little bit more about the science behind it, let me tell you some things. First, I'm going to start with the motor that's used in the Thermomix. It's housed inside here. The motor is a reluctance motor, which means it works on magnetic fields. There's no belts, no brushes, no moving parts at all. Theoretically, that actually means that the motor has an unlimited lifetime. In reality, it means I know people who've had their Thermomixes for 5, 10, 15, even 20 years, and they're still growing strong. The reluctance motor can make anywhere between 40 and about 10,000 revolutions per minute in both directions. And remember that, in both directions, because I'm going to come back to it in a minute. The other part of the Thermomix that's really amazing is the blade that's inside it. I'm just going to remove it and show you some pretty interesting things about it. You can see that the blade here actually has 4 knives attached to it. It's Sullivan steel, and it doesn't require any sharpening or replacing, which sounds impossible, but you've got to remember that you're coupling it with a motor that can go 40,000 rotations per minute, meaning that the motor is doing an incredible amount of the work for you. The other thing is to look at the construction. I mentioned that it has 4 sort of oddly, almost unevenly shaped individual blades. They're offset, a little crooked looking compared to what you might normally find in a blender or a food processor. It's extremely deliberate. They've actually been shaped based on the understanding of the dynamics of cutting. And not only that, these blades are smart. And what I mean by that is if they're going around and they sense, say, a chunk of carrot or a piece of ice becoming stuck under the blades, it'll actually self-correct its rotation in order to get that piece out. Final thing I want to tell you about the blades is that remember how I mentioned the motor turns in 2 directions? One side of each blade is sharp. And so if the motor is set to turn in the direction where the sharp part of the blade hits the food, you're cutting it. And depending on the speed, you can be doing everything from a rough cut to a chop to a fine chop to a grind to a blend and a puree. But if you turn the motor in the other direction, it's actually turning the dull part of the blade against the food, which is essentially creating a stirring motion. You can do everything from a gentle stir, the way you might with a wooden spoon on a pot on your stove, all the way up to what a professional mixer might do if you wanted to, cream eggs and butter or whipped cream or egg whites. Other thing that I want to show you is the bowl of the Thermomix. The bowl, also made of Sullivan steel, holds about 75 ounces. Interesting thing, if you can see, is it has these built-in ridges that go around it. The ridges are not there accidentally. Basically, what they're doing is allowing the food that's being chopped to sort of hit the ridges and fall back down, so you're creating a really consistent chop so that you're not like constantly having to scrape it down. The other thing that it's doing that's wonderful as it's bouncing things around is it's allowing you to puree a large batch of soup or even chop a single clove of garlic in there. And remember how I talked about the turning in both directions? The ridges also help that too. They keep food that's being stirred in there from sitting simply on the bottom, and it helps control it so things don't burn and stick to the bottom. One of the other things I wanted to show you, there's a special thing called the butterfly that comes with your Thermomix. There's an actual entire PhD written on the design of this. This is what you would want to use if you want to stir things with air into them. So what you're using if you're going to whip egg whites, if you're going to whip cream, make batters, it takes only seconds with this in order to do that. And finally, I mentioned the motor. Also inside is the integrated heating element. It actually has a sensor, which means it heats all the way through at an incredibly even rate. I can set it to any temperature I want. I could set it to, exactly 212 if I want something just to sit at a boil. And because of that, and with the automatic stirring, I'm always going to keep things at a consistent temperature. It's never going to boil over. Nothing's going to burn. That's it. That's just a little bit of the science behind the Thermomix. And if you want to see some fun cooking with it, take a look through the other videos.